Welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about 4 types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And in that light, I'm always searching for the best resources, information, people that are changing the world, influencers, thought leaders. So today we have Rachel Oz, and she's a psychologist, author. She's a art playgroundist. We'll find out what that means. Who loves listening to the beauty in people. So, it's going to be a very enlightened conversation. We're going to be talking all about psychology, caring for your inner child. So I'll welcome Rachel to the show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yes, like I said, we met through Podmatch, and I love people that are just doing very non-conformist things, changing the world. So tell us more about your story and how you got started, and we'll go from there.
Great. Well, I've been a psychologist for almost 30 years and just love doing that. And I find that my therapy clients teach me so much, as well as me being there for them. It's such an honor to have that as a profession. And what I found is that in my early 40s, now I'm 56, but in my early 40s, I found myself really prompted to integrate more of me as I was as a child. So as a child, I loved being with my friends, so they're in listening to them and supporting them. There's the psychologist. But also as a young child, I loved drawing and I loved creative writing and I loved putting together colorful clothing. And so I just felt this tug on my heart to bring back more of me, more wholly and fully. And so thus here came, the author and all the other things.
Yeah, that's quite, it's wonderful. We're always talking about, I was talking to one guest, and she was talking about as you go through life, we accumulate a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of trauma, and we just can't let it go and become more heavier and heavier and denser. But children are very light, like my nephew and nieces. They're just fun, and they do what they want, and that's almost like carefree. So I wish we could all go back to that state, but I think the world just beats us down. And I'm interested, what is art playgroundist? What does that mean?
Yes. So the classic thing that people will say is I'm an artist, and I have no trouble embracing that. But what I realized, Chris, is when I make art, it feels like, back to the child thing, it feels like it's recess and I'm on the playground and I'm playing with my friends and I have wind in my hair and I'm on the swings and I'm free. So that is the feeling I have when I make art. And so I just am rolling with it and making up my own words and calling myself an art playgroundist.
Interesting. I love people that can put ideas and concepts and create new words. I call myself an Xennial because I'm a Gen X millennial, on that coast. So I call myself Xennial.
Yes, you get it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That inner child creativity. So what's interesting is so we'll talk about. I know you have a book, and we're going to talk about that. Talking about caring for your inner child when you feel scared or sad. Tell us more about that.
Okay. Well, I am certainly already giving a nod to the inner child, right? With just the beautiful sense of that little person in us is so golden and worth listening to and caring for. And so I think there is something, we all hit these moments where we feel small or scared or vulnerable. And typically daily, there's some continuum of touching these tender places in us. And one of the ways of referring to that would be saying, I want to care for my inner child, right? This young, vulnerable part of me. And so when you think about, it can be really helpful to think about, well, as a child, what would have felt really good to me then? What kind of care would I have appreciated? Because for each of us, it might be a little bit different. There's going to be overlap, right? Like for babies, we all respond well to very specific things, right? We want to swaddle a baby. So in thinking about the inner child, because we can think about different ages of our inner child, right? So if we're thinking about infancy, if we're super scared, that might be the most useful time period to think about. And so we might like to be swaddled, right? To like have some blankets around us nice and tightly, or a weighted blanket on us. That might feel really comforting if we're feeling really vulnerable, or literally sitting on a rocking chair, right? Or having really lullaby or soothing sounds happening, or just even having literally having some milk if you're not dairy intolerant, or or certain foods that are just really easy on your stomach, applesauce, etc. Or a banana. I think that there is literal ways when we're scared to do self-care. And I think here is just a key to the universe, Chris, that we can't feel anxious at the same time we have a calmed body. Those two can't coexist. So if you're feeling scared or anxious, dressing yourself on a body level, what calms my body, can be really, really handy. And then we can keep going. I'll just say a brief thing, but then fast forward a little bit into your childhood, away from infancy, and thinking about yourself being 5 or 9, and what would feel good to you if you did something really nice for your inner child at those ages? Would it be fun to find a stuffed animal or a doll or a toy car or something that reminded you of that time, or that you loved at that time, and go after it and have it near you on your desk or someplace or your bedside, that represents, I am still caring for that little part of me, right? Again, I could keep talking and brainstorming, but I think it's both a fun and super self-loving thing to consider.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that. And how do you, so talking about nurturing your relationship as in, I guess, not leaving yourself behind. What does that mean?
Yeah, nurturing relationships and not leaving yourself behind. I think that so often, maybe particularly women, but not solely women, are socialized, conditioned, at least in the United States, to do all this caregiving of others and forget about oneself. What are all the other people in my household or in my workplace or in my friend group needing? And either run yourself ragged and get so tired, or not have enough boundaries and care for yourself and what you're needing and what your limits are. No. But there is this piece about considering your needs as well as others. And one piece that I really like to think about is, how can I become the person I want to be with? So even beginning with some self-reflection of, I want to care for myself and my needs and what delights me and what lights me up. How can I continue to transform and foster the person I am and choose what brings me joy and what makes me come alive, so that I'm becoming the person I want to be with. And then I bring that to my relationships, right? So again, not leaving me behind. And of course, if I am more fulfilled and full of light and deeply cared for and attended to within myself, oh my gosh, of course my relationships are going to benefit. I guess the last thing I would say, Chris, about all of that is that some of the hardest times in our relationships with each other is when conflict and tension arise, right? And I think that a wonderful mantra and thing to try to remember is, when conflict or tension arises in my connection with others, it is always an opportunity to love myself. So for example, if I oh gosh, if I forget an appointment with somebody, it's an opportunity to love myself. If I say something that's a little bit sharp to somebody and I feel bad about that, it's an opportunity to have compassion for myself and love myself. Of course, to learn from it and say I'm sorry and all those things, but also to love myself. And when I'm not getting in my relationships what I might need and what might be healthy, it's an opportunity to love myself.
I love that. What are some, for the audiences out there, they're very, just the way you view life and it's very colorful and playful. What are some self-care practices that you do or you can recommend?
When it comes to being colorful and playful?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would say to consider all the different parts of your life. I'll just say maybe just literally a couple different parts to consider, okay? One would be your clothing, okay? So just to share a quick story. So in my adult life as a psychologist, I remember thinking, how do I dress professionally, right? And what, at the time, like paper calendar do I use that's just very nondescript and sort of the black cover and it just, quote, looks professional. And, what is the sort of suit or, sort of classic sense of how you dress. And there came a time when I felt like secure enough in my profession and what I was up to that began to alter because what started calling me inside myself was joy and authenticity. And so, and I realized, of course, that's what I want for my clients too, joy and authenticity. And so I remember starting to pick paper calendars that were more colorful and delightful to me. And I remember thinking, can I really use that with my clients? I don't know if it looks professional, but it makes me happy. And maybe I need to model that as well. Free to be you and me. And then the next step was my eyeglasses that I wear. I remember years ago being in Dayton's department store, trying on different glasses in the teeny little mirrors you could kind of look into and see. And I remember putting on what I thought were reasonable looking glasses, and they were. And then I'd put on this purple and green swirly pair, and then I'd giggle in the mirror. And then I'd try on the other pairs, then I'd put the purple green ones on again, and I'd giggle in the mirror. And then I thought, I can't argue with my joy. And I chose the purple green ones. And it just became a snowball, Chris, in my life of choosing what made me feel alive, what brought me joy, which also trickles into self-care. And I did that with food as well. And with, choice of relationships, what feels most joyful and life-giving. And it's just a snowball and brave decisions because there's vulnerability in being seen in who you are.
Yeah. Interesting. So I know you've written a book about, this topic and, helping clients. Tell us more about the book and all of that.
Okay, great. Well, my fourth book has just released. All my books are fully illustrated and colorful. I remember later in grade school grieving that picture books turned into chapter books, and where did the drawings go? So I've brought those back. And also all of my books are personal growth books and gift books. And so this newest one is called The Relationship Book. And the subtitle is A Soulful, Transformational, and Artistic Inventory of Your Connective Life. And so this book spans all kinds of different relationships, starting with relationship with yourself, to animals, food, clothing, with human beings, community, and with divinity. And it includes, every page spread includes an anonymous client quote from my therapy office that they all gave me permission to use that took my breath away in some way. And that's coupled with the drawings and my written reflection that's a little bit poetic or prose-like, but it's meant to be a reflection for the reader. And the end of each chapter has a whole bunch of questions if you want to do a book club or if it's just for your own personal reflection about where do I find myself in all of this. But mostly The whole thing is about really being more intentional and loving with yourself and considering all these different kinds of relationships.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love your perspective and how you're incorporating it, and how have you seen this very innovative ideas and concepts applied in your practice?
Well, first of all, in my practice, my clients are also inspiring me. Thus, I have their quotes in here. So again, the humility of I sit at their feet as much as they at mine. And so in my practice, I would just say that I just encourage them to follow what gives them sparks of joy, to address what gets in the way of seeing themselves as deeply beautiful and precious all the way through, and encouraging them to take amazingly deep and beautiful and joyful care of themselves in a way that's really distinct to them. So for example, in this book, one of the page spreads in the first chapter, Relationship with Myself, is all about when standard self-care practices aren't quite lifting or shifting your mood. To go ahead and try experiences that you find are wild and beautiful. And so things like I'll just read this quick quip from the book. I walk in the rain, picnic behind a waterfall, build a tree house, flambe some food, knit sweaters for trees, watch the sunrise from a hot air balloon, show up at a friend's door and sing, read poetry at midnight, write to an elephant, say a purring prayer with a tiger at the zoo. So there is just this encouragement to do what it takes to feel alive, take the amazing care of yourself that your brief, beautiful life deserves.
Interesting. Yeah. What a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I encourage everybody to check out Rachel's book on Amazon. I'm going to check it out after this. And lastly, how do people follow you on social media, contact you, follow you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I will say that, first of all, the book it will be on Amazon, but it's not there yet. Right now, they can find the book on my website at rachellaz.com. And rachellaz.com is a general hub. And I'll just say my last name, Oz, is spelled like the beginning of awesome. So it's AWES. So there you can connect to my shop, to my counseling resources, to my social media, Instagram, and so on, all the things.
Excellent.
Yeah.
For all the audience and listeners out there, be sure to check out Rachel's resources. They'll be included in the links in the show notes. Thanks so much for this wonderful conversation. I learned a lot, and we look forward to hearing about your future success.
Thank you for having me, Chris.